Jill Marine.
Jill, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Bruce
you.
Olson, nice to meet you.
Bruce, nice to meet you. And met HR earlier, so we're good there. All right.
Okay, Bryan, we are very happy to have you here tonight. Turn on my mic. Yours is permanently on. We have 14 questions to ask you, and so that means there are 7 of us, so that's simple math. We will each offer 2 questions to you.
Okay.
And I will begin with the 4th item on our list. Bryan, tell us about yourself and why you are interested in becoming Albert Lee's next superintendent.
I'm very interested in becoming your next superintendent because I love this area. Born and raised in Austin, Minnesota. Took me all of 15 minutes to get here from my doorstep. I was a football player in high school, so I have fond memories of playing over here. I'm a father. I have 3 kids. I can relate to the community. I was just talking to my dad. I told him, I said, I have an interview this evening in Albert Lea. He's down in Florida, and he reminded me that he worked here back in the 1960s for a company called Streeters, and he was a painter there for many years. And so I do have strong connections here. I also feel a deep connection with the student body. I've taught children from here during my years of service for Girard treatment programs in Austin. If you're not familiar with that, it's about a 100-bed residential treatment program. So we had a lot of referrals that would come from this area or throughout the Midwest and the United States. I think I can relate to the community. I believe it'd be a smooth transition for us. I have strong connections with the majority of your stakeholders. I think I put in my cover letter, I'm on a first name basis with local congressmen. I was also the board chair for the Perkins grant while I was a superintendent in Lyle. I was just conversing with John Double downstairs. I know him very well. We did our principalship together way back when with Winona State. Many of your teachers I know. They were coworkers with me, and some of them worked for me in Lyle and other various places where I've been. So I want to make a difference. Just recently last week, I was over here shopping. I'm a proud credit card member of Home Depot, and I was talking to some of the customers recently, and one of the things that I asked them was, what do you want changed here? And it was very evident in your stakeholder survey that we need to get connections back. We need to build trust, and so that's something that I'm known for. The 2 districts, including the one I'm currently in, I've brought people together, and that's kind of, I'm a people person, and that's what I'm known for. I feel that I'd be a good fit for this district. I'm close to home. I'm very well versed, so again, with the community and people at large. So, and I'm also a dad too. I have 3 kids, and I think I can relate to a lot of the families here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mr. Boysen, I have the next question.
Mm-hmm.
What are your beliefs about building effective leadership teams? How have you implemented those beliefs, and what strategies have you used to provide general oversight of all other district personnel?
For leadership, we have to incorporate a humanistic approach. All my years at Winona State, including now working on my dissertation, one of the things that they really promoted with leadership is that humanistic approach, letting people know that you care. One of my professors often said, people don't care what you know until they know how much you care. And so that is the approach that I want to mentor leadership. Make sure that they know that they have to be active listeners, and sometimes listen when you don't feel like you want to listen. In all my years, I rarely missed a phone call, or I don't ever recall not returning a phone call or an email. I always try to get back to somebody within 24 hours. I think that's professional courtesy, and that's something, too, that I promote within my leadership teams. I also believe that we need to have effective and clear communication from the top down. It starts at the CEO level. That would be the superintendency. I need to model that behavior. I also want to make sure that my leadership teams are listening to all the stakeholders, including not just staff and community members, but listen to the students. With technology and everything that we have at our fingertips nowadays, we can easily survey people. Many districts now, especially larger districts, the administration is reaching out to the students, the staff, the community, asking them what they need. What do we need to do to change to make things better? Those are the kind of values combined with that humanistic approach that I want leaders in charge exemplifying. That's what I want my children who are in school. I have a kindergartner, a 7th grader, and an 11th grader. I want that type of leadership for my children, and I would expect that your community members do also. I'm just going to thank you for giving me the questions, by the way, so I can go back. If I missed something, let me know. How have you implemented? I think I explained that. What strategy have you used to provide general oversight? For district personnel, so evaluating them. So I do annual evaluations of district personnel, so I can give them constructive feedback. Make sure that they understand. If they made a mistake, we want to learn from those mistakes and move on from them. Live and learn. We're gonna survive those mistakes, but we need to learn from those mistakes. So if it was a hiccup in communication or something that wasn't clearly communicated with the body at large or the community, we need to own up to that and say, you know what, we made a mistake, we didn't articulate that good enough, let me rephrase that. So those are some things that I've done over the years.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bryan, how would you describe your management and leadership philosophy, managerial leadership strengths and weaknesses?
Well, we can start off with weaknesses. As I've grown, starting off in smaller districts, this is my 8th year as an administrator. I started off as an elementary principal and a director of assessments and curriculum for 3 years out in Jackson County, and then I was hired in Lyle, and then now Canyon One and Mingo. What I've learned over the years is and it's difficult in small districts because we wear multiple hats. When I took my current role, I absorbed 2 full-time positions, so I've learned to not take on everything myself. So one of my weaknesses was I had to recognize the fact that I'm taking too much on, and that I have people that I can give directives to and empower them to do some of the tasks that I've just taken on. So that was a weakness I identified years ago, and I've grown to learn how to delegate. Not delegate too much, but make sure that I'm giving learning opportunities for staff so that they can grow in their career as well. So the weaknesses, that weakness right there was something that I think I overcome. My management style is being a collaborator and a listener. My mother was a travel agent. She had a credo that she said, I'm available when you are. So my door is usually open, and when my door is open, you're welcome to come in. If the door is closed, that means I'm in a meeting or a phone call. And I always make sure the administrative assistants take down their name and number and schedule a meeting with them so that their voices are heard. I've never turned down anybody to speak to me. I value everyone's opinion, and I think that's how you build trust. I think is having that warm personality, down-to-earth personality, and I can relate to anybody from preschool. I used to be a preschool teacher, early childhood, all the way up to the elderly. I've done work with them too, and volunteering in my church. So I can reach multiple age levels and communicate with multiple different personalities, and keep a pretty calm demeanor. And I usually lighten the mood too. I like to crack jokes. I like to have fun, but I'm not too serious. I think that's something that a lot of districts strive for in a superintendent, is someone who can effectively communicate with all stakeholders, no matter what race, creed, background, age, educational level. We're all in this together, and people shouldn't be treated wrongly or differently or not heard just because of our differences. We live in a nation right now that's very divided. Technology has expedited that, and so we have to be very vigilant on how we communicate, where we communicate, and who we're communicating with effectively, so that all voices are heard.
Bryan, what kind of understanding would you hope to establish between the school board yourself in order to administer the school district effectively?
I would like to understand what the mission statement is, your core values, what strategic plans that you have in place. I think one of the first things I would do if I was selected for this position was to have one-on-one meetings with you. Let me know what makes you tick, what you want. What do you want out of your superintendent? So we have to have that good relationship. An understanding of controlling the narratives. You know, strange things happen. Things can happen in the news. We can have emergency situations. During my tenure in Lyle, I was there 6 months, and we had a semi crash to the building. And I was very quick to contact my board chair, who happened to be a first responder, to let him know that we've had a catastrophic event. You know, so I've always been quick to make sure that I'm in direct contact with you, so that you're aware if something's happening in real time as soon as I can. Sometimes we had an ambulance come to the school, and you know, we have somebody living across the street, and they're calling a board member. Why is the ambulance at the school? So I want to make sure that you know, you're not contacted before you're knowing exactly no board member wants to get caught off guard. So I want to make sure that we have effective communication, and that we have that personal one-on-one relationship, so that you know how I communicate, and I can know how you can communicate. My cell phone's shared, and you can call and text, and you know, anytime that's convenient, you know, for you. I would think that would effectively administer the school district, is getting to know you, the board, and then making sure that I am appealing to your senses and communicating with you effectively.
Bryan, school districts are responsible for providing high-quality, equitable education for each and every student. Explain what a high-quality, equitable education means to you.
That question, I always think of there was a cartoon a while back where you had 3 boys trying to watch a baseball game. I don't know if you've seen that cartoon, and they were trying to look over a fence. Each boy had a box, and each boy had a different height. And one boy was shorter than the other 2. So he was able to get a second box to stand on. So they all had equitable resources, but it wasn't equal. And so we have to make sure that we are meeting each child at their individual needs, okay? Every child has a story to tell. Every child. All my years working as a mental health practitioner, working with at-risk youth for 10 years at Girard, I learned very quickly that I was blessed. I was blessed with a family that cared. I was blessed with a mom and a dad and friends that cared about me. Not every child that we serve, excuse me, not every child that we serve has all those things at their fingertips. And so we need to understand that. And we need to build relationships with our kids. And this pandemic has shown those gaps, that we have very large onions to peel. And we need mental health practitioners. That's why I'm just hoping the legislature would have passed something for us this past weekend. I did not get the news I wanted to hear this morning from MREA and MSBA and MASA. But we need mental health in our schools and for our staff. In all my years, and this is my 5th year as a dual-role superintendent, which has helped me grow, still being a principal and a superintendent. I've witnessed firsthand what's going on with our kids. They're about 18 months behind socially. We're devoting a large chunk of our resources for ESSER funding towards social and emotional learning. I see you use something similar. It's called Second Step. We got to do something. We got to do something. And if I'm verging off, no, it's about the same topic here. High quality, equitable. We need to meet each child, and I'm kind of getting on my soapbox right now, but we have to build those relationships from day one. We need to greet every child with a smile, because many of our kids that we serve, there's not much happiness happening outside of school. Sometimes school is the only place where they're going to feel that joy. And I've always told teachers, and I always exemplified this while at Girard, no matter what was happening in my personal life, or no matter what's happening in your personal life, you need to make sure that you're greeting each child with a smile. So no matter what equitable equality gap that may exist, we're going to destroy that gap and get rid of it by being a positive influence on every child's life.
Bryan, how would you lead the school district in developing long-range strategic and short-range operational plans?
I'm involved in strategic planning. It's not a one-man show. The school board must be directly involved with that, with administration. We're in the process of implementing this right now in my current district, to the point where I had to work with them on that and make sure they realize that I don't just whip this together overnight and here we go, here's Boysen's strategic plan. That's not how that works. We have to have board retreats. We need to hang out with administration. I'm sending out a doodle poll to my board this week to make sure that we can check our summer schedules, and we're going to hang out. We're going to hang out from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., and we're going to discuss what needs to improve. We were able to get a levy passed last year during a pandemic. It was very difficult, but it happened, and it kept us out of SOD. So now we have some financial security. For the first time in many, many years, we're projecting a positive fund balance. It's not much. It's like 0.66 or something, but we're going from the red and into the black. So what are we going to do logistically to move forward as a district with these funds? So that is something that we need to take into account. We also need to look at declining enrollment, which my current district has been experiencing for over 5 years right now. So we're looking at our brand. We have an exceptional brand, but why did families leave? That was part of my capstone project that I'm working on for my AASA, the national certification. And I quickly found out that there was a pretty big hiccup with past administration in regards to addressing special needs in the MTSS process. And so I reached out to those families and asked them, well, why did you leave? And they just simply said, well, administration didn't care. And when they found out I had a special education background, that was pretty helpful. And the fact that I was willing to sit down with them in the summertime, and they were able to come in, and I was able to address their concerns. And now we've seen a slow increase in enrollment, but it is happening. Instead of going like this, it's kind of more like this. So that is something too we're going to talk about as short-term and long-term. What are we doing to address that? And what are we doing to address the bleeding of our finances, which was a lot of it was transportation costs. We're paying an exorbitant amount of transportation, so we were able to do an audit and see how we could condense our routes too. So as a district, that planning process has to be done collaboratively between administration and the board, while also surveying stakeholders too, bringing people from the outside in and talking to the boots on the ground, the teachers, the paras, the custodians, and then also looking at our LTFM and what are our top 10, 20 things that need fixing around the district. So that's kind of how I roll. Like I said, that can't be a one-man show, including same with passing the levy. I mean, that was certainly a short-term goal in both districts I've served, passing 2 levies in 3 years. That was a short-term goal that had to happen very quickly. I see you guys had a levy passed. Hats off to you. That's a lot of work. And so you're in a good financial situation, so that you've been good stewards of the purse. And so I'd be pretty excited. If I'm selected for this position, I'd be pretty excited to see where we can go from here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bryan, we are looking for a leader who has a record of involvement and visibility in both the school district and community. Provide us with examples on how you will be involved, visible, approachable, and accessible in our district and the community.
Well, I'm the face of the district. I don't know if it's the best looking face, but I have to be visible. I love people. I love talking. And I have to be out and about. It was, when I switched from Lyle to Mingo, a lot of people were looking at me like, what are you doing? It's like there's a pandemic. Well, I did not think it was going to last more than a month, the pandemic. So here I am in a new town. Everybody has these masks on, and I know everybody by name. Like all 345 kids I had in Lyle, I knew them all on a first name basis. There was an article written about that in the Herald, but I couldn't get to know people. It was extremely difficult. And here we're going to try and go off for an operating levy, and businesses were shut down. And I couldn't do it. It didn't pass. So how do you be visible without that? Well, I had to use technology. I bent the rules a little bit. We had town hall meetings in the elementary gym, even though I was told not to, but I had to get out and see people. So we made sure everybody was social distance. We had stickers on the bleachers, and we made it happen, but it didn't pass. And then the next year, which was this past fall, it did pass. And I think in large part was the boots on the ground. A lot of my teachers, the teachers union, did a lot of phone calling. I did a lot of PR work. I was out and about talking with businesses. It was like, the gates opened up and here we go, and it worked. That visibility, that track record of that has to be in place with the superintendent. And I think I do that pretty well. Attending events when I can, getting out and about, meeting people. If I'm selected for this position this summer, that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get into contact with your local media, your press. Since I heard about the position, I've been listening to 96.1 every day, and I'm a big rock fan anyway, so I've been listening to your local radio stations, reading the Tribune, following all of your social media accounts, doing a lot of that homework and research. Even though I'm very well versed with the community, I needed to really tap into that. So if I am selected for this position, I will make certain to have those contacts. So that's what I quickly did in Lyle. That's what I quickly did in Kennewinemingo. That's what I did in Jackson County. I made sure that all the local media outlets knew who I was, so that I could be the PR person and the voice of the district to make sure I could talk about all the wonderful things that we are doing and get ahead of that narrative, because nowadays so many people want to be so negative and they just want to blast us. I mean, we are in the crosshairs right now, and so we need to make sure that we're getting the narrative out there of all the wonderful things that we're doing for children and how we're progressing our communities, because we know that our school district is directly connected with the success of the community through economics and local businesses and that. The other thing I've done to be visible, too, is when I was the chair for the Perkins Committee, I had a really strong relationship with not just the businesses, but the local colleges and post-secondary institutions, which also helped with retention of teachers and recruiting. So I reached out to them. I found out about the Perkins Committee. I was asked to chair that, and I did that. And so was yesterday or the day before, there was something published regarding your career tech and some of your kids getting out into, was it welding? There was a post on Facebook, I'm trying to remember what it was, and I've seen other publications on 3D printing, laser printing. I was thinking to myself, some of those devices I approved when I was chairing that. So we also did that in Lyle, where we had students, because of my visibility and connections with stakeholders, we had kids that were graduating from high school, and they were entering right into the workforce because they completed an apprenticeship or they completed their concurrent classes and earned that dual credit. So networking, making sure that I'm in connection with the right people for our students, that's a big role for the superintendent. Yeah. And approachable. I'm approachable. Anybody, I'll talk to anybody. Yeah.
Okay, Bryan, tell us about your previous experience related to directing, building, and implementing a school district budget. What process have you used or would you use for long-range financial planning?
So two districts I've walked into, I won't mention which ones, but I've been heavily recruited in districts that are in financial crisis. And so when I arrived, I opened the books, and I quickly made a good relationship with the business manager, because that relationship, because we have to be those good stewards of the purse, I have to have a good working relationship with that person. And I remember when I met with a particular business manager, I asked this person, I go, what happened? I go, we're cutting $836,000. What happened? And this person said, I was shut out. Nobody talked to me. The superintendent didn't talk to me. I was not invited to board meetings. Everything was kind of, we're not going to talk about this. But the spending kept going. And so what we did was, besides like a transportation audit, we just opened the books and we started looking at simple contracts, a piece of paper. Why are we paying $25,000 for this web-based software that I know I only have 2 teachers out of 20 using? That doesn't make any sense. So we started looking at things that were approved and they weren't using. And so we basically took a logic and data class in college for my doctorate, and we talked about logic models. What are you inputting and what's the output here? Well, we're inputting a ton of taxpayer money, but we're not getting the outputs that we wanted. So we started cutting contracts out, and bam, 10 grand here, 20 grand here, 30 grand here. We combined some positions. We were able to do this without really laying off anybody. We just kind of cut the fat, so to speak. So when we did, and then I absorbed 2 full-time jobs in this particular district. But it's just simply looking at the books, sharing the books, letting the staff know, letting the board say, hey, we got a problem here. We need to fix this. And so it's not that we're going to be mean. These are hard decisions. These are tough conversations. But if we want to sustain the current programming that we have to look at this. So and that's kind of what we're going to do this summer with my current district, is that we're going to kind of look down the road here and see, okay, so this is the new funding we're getting. Yeah, the ESSER money was great. It's keeping us alive. The boat's still floating, barely. But we got to look long-term here. We got a $100,000 roof repair. Where's that going to come from? So we got to figure those things out. We can't sell enough chocolate bars to repair a $100,000 roof, but we got to figure out what can we do long range to fix the bleeding, and we did that. So the particular district that I was in, we were able to cut a lot of that fat, and then it saved us. And the pandemic happened, and like this district, I'm sure, we received a nice little chunk of money, and that helped us. But it's not long-term, as you know. It's a short-term, one-time payment. So what are we going to do to maintain sustainability in the district? Especially if you have decline enrollment, then you're looking at combining classrooms. You're looking at, if you're combining classrooms, we're making sure we're shutting off the lights and lowering the heater, so we're not wasting so much money. But at the same time, maintaining the current programming that we have. And again, that's a community effort, and making sure that when we're doing that, again, what I said earlier, circling back, that we're controlling the narrative. I want to make sure that the public is aware of that. If I was new walking in, who's this guy? He's just getting rid of everything. Everyone's really protective of the arts, which is good. And sometimes some people are just protective of athletic programs, and they could care less about curriculum or academics. Well, okay, we got to talk about that, because where I come from, I think academics is a little bit more important than athletics. That's kind of our priority, is to be learning. So we had to have careful conversations to make sure that we're not going to get rid of sports, but maybe we don't need new helmets and gloves every year. Okay, maybe we don't need new baseball bats every year. So just prioritizing, maintaining the budget. We do that as parents, as adults. We watch what we're spending, but long range, that's something that we need to make sure that we're talking about and planning for the future.
All right, I have the next question, and it is, what would be your reaction if the school board opposes something which you thought was sound, and what if the school board proposes something which you think is unsound or inappropriate?
Oh, that's a good one. So I'd want to know why. If I'm proposing something, I'm like, this is a big deal. Why are you opposed to it? One of the things, I'm trying to think of a past story here, altering the calendar. If me and a couple of my administrators were to alter our calendar, and I wanted you to approve it, and you're like, no, kids need to be in school, we missed too much school. No, we're not going to do it. Well, why? Well, because we missed too much school. Okay, I'm making note of that. But let me tell you why we're proposing this, and this is something that we've actually done. Our teachers have lost a total of 81 days of prep total because they've had to fill in and sub. I have one teacher who's had no prep for probably about 3 months because he's subbing every day on his prep. So when you start bringing together the facts and kind of showing that, I'm hoping that they would side with it, but the board is the governing body. You represent the people, okay? So if it's going to get shot down, even though I might be proposing this, if something's going to be shot down, I have to respect that. But I think we all deserve to know why on both sides of the table. Okay, what if the board proposes something which you think is unsound or inappropriate? Okay, so if you propose something that's unsound, we're going to have a conversation about it, and if, as the CEO and the superintendent, I need to be considered the educational expert, and I want to make sure that if I'm opposing something that you're trying to do, I need to make sure I explain with sound criteria why I think so. Be like, oh, I don't know if we should be doing that. If you have somebody that is trying to work outside of the circle, and go rogue, we have to kind of talk about that. We have to remember that we're all on the same team, okay? We're all on the same team, and we're here to serve children. So if we're going to disagree, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, we have to come to a compromise and figure out why we have such different opinions, and maybe we can come to a compromise. I don't know. But again, at the end of the day, we all have to realize that we're on the same team. Bless you.
Oh, me. Excuse me.
There's people behind me.
As an educational leader, describe a significant challenge you have faced and tell us how you addressed it.
Okay. There's been a couple. I talked about earlier when the semi crashed. That changed my life forever and a lot of people. It was a very traumatic experience. But what I quickly realized, that besides working in group homes and working with vulnerable adults in the mental health field, I quickly realized how vital that is, and here's why. When that semi hit, I was on my way to Adams for a superintendent meeting, and my secretary came running at me. She's like, Brian, a truck ran in the building. I'm thinking a pickup truck. And no, it was an 18-wheeler loaded with cheese out of Wisconsin, and it crashed into our art room. And there were a lot of miracles that happened that day. But what I quickly realized is that we had to evacuate the building, which we used our crisis model with Fidelity. It worked very well. The church across the street saved our lives because it was 25 below zero on that January day. And we were able to extract the semi. I quickly called my brother-in-law, who was in charge of a construction company, and all the first responders that came were daddies and parents and grandpas, family members, and you got 300 gallons of diesel fuel and oil, and the sprinklers are going off. It was quite the scene, and we were able to get that. This happened at 8:24 in the morning. We were able to get the semi out of there, and we had plywood up, and we had that wall, because the cab was supporting the roof, so you can imagine the hole in the wall. We were able to have that patched up by 4 p.m. Again, back to the connections, I know everybody, so I had a constructional engineer come down out of St. Peter too, and we got it patched up, and that was on a Tuesday. By Friday, we had our students back in the building, and that decision was very challenging because I wasn't sure if that was the best decision, but I thought for the mental health of everybody, getting back in, knowing that the building's okay and that we're all okay, it was a good decision. And we were able to do that with all the staff too, because we quickly deployed 4 different mental health agencies on site the day of the accident. 4. Multiple psychologists, multiple experts because of my connections. And they were able to process and work with students and staff for the next 48 hours to make sure we're all okay, because it was, like I said, it was a very traumatic experience. So that was one decision. That was a significant challenge. That was January of 2018. Like I said, I was 6 months on the job. About 1 year later, we had a polar vortex where I had the pleasure of working with the Moore-Freeborn County Cooperative. We had over 550 power lines. I don't know if you remember that, but this was 3 years ago where we had sub-zero temps, and we had no power in Moore County in Lyle for about 3.5 days. So what happened that particular day, and I was the only administrator in the area that met with the governor, Tim Waltz, at the time. It was a 2-star general from the U.S. Army, National Guard. They came down. We met at the Armory in Austin. And we quickly got our needs met. And within a couple of days, the power came on, but it was crazy. I'd never experienced anything like that. So again, it was a year after the semi hit. So in my 5 years of being a superintendent, I got about 20 years of drama that was just packed in there. But again, I was able to reach out to very powerful people in Minnesota to make things happen. So that happened. We got the power back on, lost some food in the kitchen, but we were able to work it out. Part of the building was used as a shelter. I was the only district, too, that we used our vans, our vehicles, to transport food in collaboration with United Way to the elderly who had no way of getting food to their homes during that polar vortex. So we did that. That was a joy, helping people with the United Way. And then long-range plan, going back to that one question, long-range planning. So we tried to figure out what happened that day on Highway 218 going into Iowa. And we quickly realized that we're not considered a school zone, which was unusual. And I found out why. So I contacted Dr. Brenda Casilius. At the time, she was the commissioner of MDE. She met with me, and she goes, "What do you need?" I said, "I need bypass lanes on this highway because we have no stop sign. We're not a school zone because we don't have any curb and gutter, even though the highway is literally, 100 feet away." So what ended up happening is we quickly put together a committee of including the mayor, my police chief. We had the commissioner, Charlie Zilius, I think his name was. He was the commissioner of MnDOT at the time. Met with him. I remember Dr. Casilius said, she goes, "If you don't get what you want, I'll have the governor call you. You'll get what you want because this is a big deal." So we hold the record for the most fastest expedited project in the history of the Minnesota Department of Transportation. With less than 18 months from beginning to end, we got 2 bypass lanes put on that highway so that when a Chevy Impala is at a complete stop turning to come to school with a 12th grade student and her mom in there, it's not going to get rear-ended by an 18-wheeler, which is what happened that day. Now that semi can go around the car and go down into Iowa or vice versa, coming from Iowa north. So now we have those bypass lanes in there. And when they were blacktopping out there that day, and I worked for MnDOT all through college. My dad did too, for the city of Austin. So I was pretty well versed in blacktopping. But when I saw the pavers out there and the rollers, I got emotional because I knew that simple bypass lanes were going to save lives. And they're saving lives to this day because the traffic study that MnDOT did in the summer of 2018, there's more semi-traffic on 218 than I-90 between Austin and Upperly. That's astounding. That's astounding. So those are big-time decisions that I made in about 2-year time, but I grew up pretty quick. I didn't have any gray hair, gray whiskers before that, but I aged pretty quickly those 2 years. Hoping not rambling on too long, but I was going to ask, 30? Okay. 30? How's my timekeeper doing over there?
Probably just a little less.
A little less than that? Okay, sounds good.
Bryan, as a superintendent of schools, how would you help build trust between the community and the district, between the staff and administration?
Yeah, that was echoed quite frequently in conversations I've had and looking at the stakeholder survey. I think one of the biggest ways you build trust with people is to empower them. Trust them. I think, and that was something too that was preached to me at Winona State, is to empower the teachers. Listen to the teachers. Listen to the custodians. Especially if I'm new coming in here, I got to take time to just listen to people, actively listen, and appeal to their senses. My job's not to shut people out. My job is to listen. And at the end of the day, make an informed decision if I have to. I'm not an authoritarian person by nature, but when I make a decision, it's going to be informed. There's days where I know the buck's going to stop here, but at the same time, building trust is allowing people to know that, hey, Boysen trusts me. He's having me do this. It kind of goes back to when I was a teacher. When you're a kid, you just idolize your teacher. I remember every teacher I had. Every teacher, from preschool on up. And when I was a teacher, one of the biggest things I did to get a kid to trust me was I would write a note, and I'd say, "Hey, go deliver this to the school secretary. You're going to be my mailman today, or my mail gal." And they just glowed. I mean, this is a big deal. We're delivering the mail, okay? We're now a federal agent, okay? So that, oh my gosh. And from when I did that, I never had any issues with that kid because Mr. Boysen trusted me with the mail, and that was a big deal when you're delivering a message. So and the same as with adults. We want to be trusted, and we want to be heard. And I think one of the biggest things we can do is empower them. And I've taken over leadership positions from people who are micromanagers and authoritarian by nature. And they were just shocked that when I came in, I was like, "Yeah, you can do that. Go ahead." "What do you mean I can do that?" Go ahead and do that. If you want to do this lesson this way, that's okay. But thanks for running it by me, because I want to make sure sometimes staff will do things and they won't communicate with you, and it's like, well, make sure you're running that by me, like, there's been days where, if I saw somebody visiting the school and they're like a guest speaker, I'm like, well, wait a second, give me a heads up on this, I didn't know this was happening, or like the other day I had a SWAT team vehicle show up at our school. I had no idea that this thing was coming. It looked like a tank. I'm like, what? It was my librarian that invited this huge machine, which was really cool. I wanted to get in and drive it, but she forgot to tell me that they were coming on Friday. So I was and I had to go to a meeting, so I was bummed I didn't get to go ride around in it. But I have heard that it's coming back, so I'm going to see if I can drive it. We'll see what happens here. I don't know. But anyway, I think that's how you build trust, and just having that, again, back to what I said earlier, that humanistic approach of caring. I think if you look at my my reference letters, you talk to people that know me, they know I have a big heart. Sometimes I wear it on my sleeve. So, yeah.
Bryan, describe your experience with negotiations and the collective bargaining process. How do you or would you approach contract negotiations during the negotiations year?
So, I just sealed up, for the most part, I think 3 contracts just last week. And I have experienced mediation. All right? And over the years, and I come from a very blue-collar family. My dad was a grievance man for UAW while he worked for the city. And, and I also, I remember experiencing the Hormel strike back in 1986. So I'm very well versed in unions and how those unions can affect communities and morale. And so just recently this year, about a year ago, we started negotiating the teacher's contract, and we talked and did some things, and then it was levy season, and we got to a point where it's like, oh my gosh, we can't, you're kind of at a crossroads here, we can't figure this out, because there's a couple things on the table, on the menu, that we weren't really agreeing on, but then we quickly realized, we're like, we didn't have time to talk about this. But we agreed to go to mediation, and so we did that, and this happened last week, and it was beautiful. We were in the room for half a day, and we came out, all parties agreed to the contract, so we're going to slap that on the agenda for June, and it's going to get approved. But we realized with having these 2 gals from the Bureau who did an exceptional job of bringing us together, and it came out that we at the end of the day, we're like, what was the big deal? Why couldn't we agree to this? Well, we found out we just didn't have time. Everybody's been so busy. With the shortage of teacher subs and everything, we're just doing multiple roles. So that was that experience. But, the biggest experience with contract negotiations, again, is they go a lot easier when people trust you and that they know that you care about them. As an administrator, I believe that I've supported and backed up, especially during the pandemic when it's been pretty tough. I mean, my staff sees me getting a mop and bucket. My staff sees I'm wiping up a mess in the hallway. My staff sees me subbing in classrooms, and helping out. And so our teams, we all work together. And so when it comes down to the contract negotiations, I am listening to them and hearing what things that they need in that contract, and we're coming to agreements. So walking into a new position in my current district with 3 contracts that were expiring, we were able to seal those up last week. So yeah, it's a pretty good experience with that. And it just comes down to actively listening to people and compromising on some things. And what was really cool is that the staff that I work with, when we're sealing the deal with the contracts, was that they all said, we know that the district's in a financial crisis. So we're okay with 0% in year 1. I mean, how often does that happen? So we're all in this together. So, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. Upon review of the Albert Lea School District's hiring criteria, is there anything about your past work experience that you would like to highlight for us?
I kind of touched base on some of the high-profile items. I think it's important to note, when you look at my resume, I've taught children from all over the world. I know for a fact, in southeastern Minnesota, in this area, especially the demographics is changing. The socioeconomics of our families is changing. We're kind of heading into times that we haven't experienced as a nation since probably a couple generations ago. I'm very concerned about the economics of our country right now, inflation. You talk to the leading economists, we're looking at a possible recession. We're seeing what the Dow Jones is doing. All this affects us. So as a superintendent, I have to be visionary and watch the news. I still buy the local newspaper and read it every day. So I need to make sure that my fingertips are on the pulse of what's happening in our community. So I think what kind of highlights me and sets me above the competition is that I'm very well versed with the local economics here and the community at large. So as we plan and prepare for the future, which is concerning right now, I want you to know that wherever I've worked or served, besides having kids as the number one top priority students, my other priority is to make sure that we're planning for the future and that we're prepared for anything. I know that the climate in a lot of districts is pretty rough, so we need to look at what we're doing and how we might want to think about doing things differently. Maybe how we're treating families, how we're communicating with families. And like I said, teaching kids from all over the world, teaching in other countries, I'm still very proud of my student internship with the Department of Defense, it was only 3 months after 9/11. I have fond memories of working with our military families and seeing the sacrifices that they make. I think that sets me above the rest too, with those highlights. And just working with children and teaching children for many years that many districts and many teachers said, we can't, this isn't the right setting for this child, we need help. So I worked in a very interesting learning environment at Girard. And the other thing too that highlights me, I hate doing this, it sounds like I'm bragging, but when I started off in education, I graduated from Riverland to be a police officer. And I thought to myself, I'm not done yet. I'm just going to stay in school for a little bit longer. And I just needed to get out of mom and dad's house. And so I transferred to Winona State and went into elementary education. And while I was at Winona State, I started off as a paraprofessional in Winona. I don't know if I listed that on there or not, but that's how I started. And my dad also used to be a custodian for Austin Public Schools back in the 70s. So I started there and just kind of stayed in school and kind of worked my way up. So I've worn a lot of hats over 20 years in education, and I think that says something. Starting off as an early childhood special ed teacher, a preschool teacher, and then the following year going into a classroom full of teenagers at a residential treatment program. That was quite the shift for me, but I was able to adapt to that. And then working in group homes with the elderly and adults. So I got pretty proud of my resume, but more importantly, I'm proud that I've been able to serve communities and get things done and make a difference and bring people together. So I'll leave you with that.
Bryan, now any questions that you have for us?
I do have questions for you. Let's see here. I got a whole bunch of them, but I highlight a couple ones. Well, first I'm going to take a drink, take a deep breath. I got time? How are we doing?
You are at 12 minutes, Bryan.
Perfect. I've kind of gotten better at this. Usually I talk really fast. I'm trying to slow myself down a little bit. So I guess we can go round robin or just chime in whenever. I'm just kind of curious when a lot of you first joined the board and what were your initial first impressions? So I don't know if you want to start with Angie or...
All right, I joined the board January of last year, and I'm trying to think of what my first impression was. I've just been taking it all in as I've been here, and overall it's been a very positive experience. There have been some things that didn't work the way I thought they would.
Oh, yeah.
But overall I've been very happy with the people here.
Cool.
So.
Dennis.
This is my term ends this year. So I've been on for 4 years, and then I was on 20 years ago. I served about 14 years.
Oh, okay.
So similarities and differences, the times change, the climates change. Just have to be aware of the community and those you're working with, so.
Yeah, amen.
I'm in the 4th year of my first term. I think it was 16 maybe. I was appointed for about a year and a half. I was on the board. So
Okay.
I'm at about 6.5 years, or 5.5 years, sorry. I think for me, I was an early childhood, director of early childhood, and I'm now in higher ed, so education is is a passion of mine, and so I feel like I bring a lot to the table, and then I've also
Absolutely.
learned a lot from being at this table too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Neil?
Yeah, a few years ago, I was born in this area and attended 1 through 12 in
1 through
District
12.
241. They didn't have kindergarten in Hayward.
Uh-huh.
I left for 4 years to go to college and then came back.
Yep.
And I've been here ever since. And when I graduated for the second time, retired in 2014, I took a couple of years off and then joined the school board. And really, I don't know as if I have encountered any surprises. While I was a teacher, I was involved in a lot of things. I was involved in negotiations, and so now
okay.
the only difference is I'm on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
I really, honest, can say that I didn't go into this position blind, and I've been very. I love educating. I love this district.
Mm-hmm.
I love the community,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very happy being on the school board.
Yeah. This is it's a pretty cool community. Just drive. I have a lot of memories of going to the fair. You know, I got a lot of memories. I got memories of buying my first Harley at Bergdale. And I'm going off script here. I'm sorry, but I just, I got a lot of good memories of this town. So cool.
7+ years ago, but I come from a family of educators and school board members.
Mm-hmm.
Just basically overwhelmed with all the different intricacies of
Yeah.
education, and now as I learn more about how different school finance is compared to public finance, and which makes it interesting but also challenging, and glad that we had a good finance director to work with those kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's one of those things too. I was talking to a business manager in Minnesota and one in Iowa. The manual for Minnesota is like 30-some pages, and in Iowa, the person said it's 1 page. So, yeah. Yep. Jill?
Well, for me, I'm in my 16th year, the last year of my 4th term. So this is my second superintendent search.
No.
So to your question, was one of my first impressions of the board, and the board has changed many times over 16 years, and the whole culture of the district has changed many times as well. But I guess one thing that I would say is there is still work to be done as far as valuing different opinions, different voices.
Yep. Good. That's exciting for me. Yeah. Bruce?
I worked with the school district for 17 years as director of facility and transportation. And I've seen how hard the school board worked, how dedicated they were, and they kept kids first. I thought to myself, as I was sitting through a lot of meetings, I might want to do that someday. And I've enjoyed it. I'm still learning a lot.
Yeah.
Still learning.
Yeah.
But I haven't been disappointed.
It's kind of a calling, I think. It's a calling. You know, you're elected. You got to go through that whole campaign. Your name's brought into the news, and so hats off to you guys. This has been a very difficult 2 years, and your mental health is valuable too. So I always check in with them. We went through some sticky times in my current district too, when we had to make difficult decisions like closing or whatnot. I'm very proud that I know we got a week left, but the district I'm currently in, we have been full in person every day. We have not worn masks. We have taken full value in making sure our rooms are clean, making sure that we're providing the safest environment, and we did it a full normal year, and I'm so thankful. Some of our neighbors weren't able to say that, but I know some of my board members, their names have been dragged through the mud because of various opinions that they've shared, and it's unfortunate. But as a superintendent, I didn't say this, but as a superintendent too, I think it's also my job to check in with you guys individually to make sure you guys are doing okay too. So, we're okay. There was one question on here too. I want to make sure. What do you most want to preserve in our school, and what would you like to see changed? We'll start with Angie again. Maybe you don't know if you have an opinion on that. Like, what's something you want to preserve?
Oh, boy, let's see. Let me look at my notes real quick. Oh, I still have my microphone on. Well, the number one thing that comes to mind is just we have such good people here and good teachers and great staff. That was a top result in our community survey.
Yes.
And I wouldn't expect that to change, but I know there's been a lot of burnout and challenges there with the teachers, so I would want to make sure that that they're taken well care of and appreciated and worked with, and morale can be improved.
Absolutely.
I would say preserving the history. There's a lot of rich history in the educational system here, good and bad, but we learn from the history and moves us forward. And then looking ahead, we need to really focus on mental health and also the learning gap.
Kim?
I would say that preserving our fund balance while retaining our staff. I think we do a really good job of retention in this district.
Okay.
If people, I know it doesn't probably to some feel that way, but if you look at other districts, we do a good job with that. I think for me, as we move forward, I think trust and transparency is going to be vital. You've heard many of us are in our last year of our term. So this could look different, and so it's going to be important that we have trust on all levels of the of everybody.
Good. Thanks, Kim.
Oh, boy, I could speak for years on this subject, but I won't. We have it's been pointed out we have a wonderful staff. We're a people industry, and we have great people, and we need to make them feel appreciated.
Okay.
So I would love to preserve that. Change, you never step in the same river twice. We need to welcome change, and things will change. Things are never going to be the same as they were, and we need to embrace that and learn from it and deal with it.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that change is inevitable and that it can be an opportunity.
Good. Dave?
Just like Kim had mentioned, the financial status and keeping the people that we have here in our team, and just trying to find a way to deal with declining enrollment again.
Okay.
And I know that's more of a community problem, but it's also school-led. So.
Well, there's decline enrollment everywhere. We saw that statewide. Yeah. Jill?
For me, along with our great staff, I would like to maintain the strides we've taken with our diversity, with our diverse population of students, success coaches, etc. As far as change, I would like to see a shift in our culture toward a culture that is more conducive to the mental health aspects of not only staff and students, and to help close the learning gaps.
Okay. Thank you.
Mine, mine's the same as many of the others, maintain a healthy fund balance and our staff, but also I like to see the vocational programs increased, prepare our students for get a job right out of high school.
Career ready. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Perfect. I could talk for another hour. I got more questions, but are we done? We're about done. All right. Well, thank you. This has been an honor. I think this is probably the biggest interview I've ever done in my career, so I was honored just to be here. I look forward to hopefully hearing back maybe later, and I wish you all the best. If this is the last time I see you, I wish you well. Just down the road, so If you have any questions about anything, give me a holler. So thank you so much. Have a good evening, yeah.